Hello and welcome back to show. And we are here today. I'm very excited. I'm very, very, very excited with somebody representing the Overture Center for the Arts, the lovely, wonderful, talented, and a very sweet, sweet, sweet friend of mine, Cara Beach. Cara, thank you so much for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know who maybe you are or
Sure.
what you do with Madison, give us a little bit about your backstory.
Sure. Gosh, like that's pretty open-ended. I'm a Madison native. Grew up on the east side of town for most of my life, and then moved over to Fitchburg. Went to Verona High School when I was, middle school or so. So local here. It's been kind of fun growing up in this town and seeing all the different theater that's in this town and see how it's grown over the years. So that's been really fun. I've been involved with quite a few of the different local communities as I've grown up, and the community companies. That's the word I was looking for. That's open-ended.
So were you involved in theater and the arts during your high school years?
During my high school years, I was. Yep. I didn't get in theater until my sophomore year, and then started on stage. I was a gymnast growing up, and so they liked putting me with the dancers.
Uh-huh.
My first show, I'll never forget, it was 42nd Street, which I love that show.
Great show.
But I got put in with the tappers, with like the tap corps. That was a really steep learning curve for me I was nothing but tapping, eating, sleeping, dreaming, tap for a while I was learning all of it. But got to work with, I went to high school with Sarah Bartlett, who's a really great choreographer that works a lot with a lot of the companies locally, and that was so great because she was one of my teachers as one of the dance captains, and so got to learn it there, and then transitioned kind of more to direction and stage management, and that's kind of where my like left turn, so to speak, came in. By the time I graduated high school, I was ASMing for Middleton Players Theater and Oregon Straw Hat Players, and helping out with Madison Opera too as an ASM. So lots of fun with those local companies.
And then what was your first position? How did you get involved with the Overture?
Sure. I was at the Overture's opening 20 years ago. In 2004, I was stage managing for the Voices of Madison concert, which of course featured a lot of the singers from local churches. And so that was really, really cool to be a part of that building as it came up, right? Because I did so much work with the opera and stuff in the Civic Center and the Oscar Mayer Theater. So that was really cool to see it kind of be a part of that, right? That was a great celebration. But I didn't actually become an employee or that until 2010, and I came in as a part-time contract worker, actually, working with the onstage program, which is of course our school-aged series that we do for field trips, and had a lot of fun, and got involved right away with the Tommy Awards is what it was called at the time. Right. And just started really, people ask me, like, how did you get your job? Right. And the biggest thing I tell them is I just kept saying yes. Right. Like at one point during the year, Tim Sowers, my boss, still my boss, came up to me and said, "What are you doing in June?" Like whatever the date of the Tommies was. And I was like, "What do you need me to do?" And that's been a lot of how my job has kind of morphed over the years. And that's actually how I became a part of Cocktails, our Cocktails with Tim and Cara program as it is now. But it started off as just Cocktails with Tim, and I didn't have a microphone.
You were kind of the Vanna White.
I was kind of the Vanna White. I did the slides and I pushed the button, right? Like I was the tech support, right? That's kind of how I thought. I'm like, yeah, I can come and put some slides together for you and hit the space bar. Like, yeah, I can do that. But then I had things I wanted to say. And Tim allowed me to upstage him occasionally and handed me his microphone. So,
which is a big deal.
It is a big deal. It is a big deal, right? But he and I had a great rapport. We got along right away, and so we became kind of this fun duo, right, with that Cocktails, and I kept working with the Jerrys, and which is what the Tommies became, and just a lot of our musical theater programs. So that's kind of just where I found my niche, and kept expanding as we kept growing, and Overture wanted to keep reaching new age groups.
So what is your title currently now?
My title currently is the Director of Broadway Engagement Programs, which means it is all musical theater all the time in my world.
And is it just the Broadway series, or is it anything that has to do with like the high schools, and then is that all rolled into like, into
It is
the
all
Jerry
rolled in that.
Awards
Yep.
and everything?
So I kind of had the broad spectrum of Broadway, right? From our Disney Musicals in Schools program, which is our elementary school program. Right now we're currently in the Madison schools with that program, and we're going to expand to Janesville next year, which is really exciting. And then we have a new middle school program, which just kicked off last year, kind of in a small little launch with a couple of middle schools. And we still don't have a name for that program. So we're looking for a name if anybody's got any ideas. So right now it's the middle school musical theater program,
Which is perfectly
fine. It's fine. It's
like,
very,
yeah.
it's
like
it
title
tells
of
what it
show.
is, right?
It's like-
Exactly. That's what it is right now. But we're working on it. And then of course the Jerry's, which is the high school program. Our Cocktails with Tim and Cara program is right now for our Broadway subscribers. And then I helped Tim when we put together the Broadway series that we have, Overture at Broadway series. And I do the settlements for all of the shows that come in, which is all the money on the back end, right?
Wow.
So I have that kind of, I have what I say, I have the $1 million Broadway shows, budget shows, all the way down to we have $100, let's do a elementary school musical theater. Like I have everything in between. It gives me a really good perspective.
I'm sure it does.
And the elementary school kids actually renew my hope for the future, because sometimes the Broadway shows are a little rough with how the business, because it is a business, right? And so you get trapped in the business and you forget about the joy sometimes. But I have a great job with getting that range where I get to see it all.
That's very cool. And I think that's really important too, because I mean, some of the best shows I've seen have been in the high schools. And even when we were doing the middle school, when Disney was in the middle schools, I'm always just amazed at the dedication and the talent that these kids have got. And you just want to be able to say, okay, for the rest of your life, here's $1 million.
Right?
Just go and become a professional.
Just go and do it.
Don't worry about anything else in your life, because you are so good at this. And to finally see our education, public and private, supporting that kind of thing is really, really, and Overture does a great deal of that. I mean, their outreach is really incredible. I really commend them for doing this. I think it's so important to have in the schools.
That's part of our mission.
Yep, that's very cool.
Absolutely part of our mission.
So on the other end, how do you and Tim decide on what music? I mean, obviously you have to go with the ones that are available.
Yes,
that are actually on tour. That's probably half your criteria right there.
Or more, sometimes.
So what's your, like, not everything, but what's the procedure you kind of follow for that?
So we're at the mercy, of course, as you said, as to what's on the road. But then the bigger chunk of it oftentimes is routing. So there are a couple people who are looking at, we're partners with Broadway Across America, and so we work with them to help schedule. And they work with a big network of different PACs around the country. And so what they're doing is we tell them, hey, these are the shows that our people are interested in, or that we think they would like, because we do send out a big survey. And a big part of it isn't just like what Cara and Tim want to see. I mean, that's a lot of what people like anyway, too. But I mean, it isn't just us pushing the buttons, right? It's not us driving the bus. It's, we know what folks in Madison want to see. We try to be really in touch with that and respond to that, because otherwise, who's going to buy tickets if people don't want to go see the shows, right? So, we take that in mind and looking at the list and say, here are the top shows that we really would like to see routed to Madison in our next season. Like we just actually last month, June. Yeah, June was last month.
Yeah, we're in July already.
We just had our first meeting to talk about 25, 26 and like what's coming down the pike, right? So we'll lock that in probably, September, it'll get close, and then November, it'll be done, right? So we're getting into that point where, we're looking at 2 seasons down, or a season down the road. And that's what it was. It was like, hey, these are our kind of top 3 for sure, and these are the other ones we'd consider. But in coming up with those, it isn't just like what we like. We also like to try to get, a mixture, a classic. We want to have a family piece in there as often as possible. We want something that's going to appeal to wide ranges of our subscribers and our single ticket buyers too. So it's all about balance. I mean, it's really about balance.
So when you make your trips to New York and you actually see shows that are currently running on Broadway, do you have any any inkling in your head of thinking, this is such a great show with this Broadway cast, but what's the touring company going to be like? Does that ever factor into your mind
sometimes,
at all?
right? Like, there's some shows that you just can't, it's hard to see them without that cast, right? I mean, SpongeBob was one of those, the SpongeBob musical. We loved the SpongeBob musical, and we knew like that role of SpongeBob. I mean, he's on the stage 80% of the time with these killer songs that he's singing, and it's going to take a unique individual to be able to step into those shoes.
Right.
I think they did a good job with it. But yeah, there is always that question, right? Because you don't know who's in the cast when you're booking the shows, right?
Exactly.
And it shows like, we have Funny Girl coming up next year. And it was one of those where we're like, well, like who's in it? Because that's going to be the key piece, right? And they have this, I don't know who's going to be, if she's staying or not, but the woman who was in the role the last season was absolutely phenomenal.
Everybody that I've talked to that's seen her in that just said
phenomenal.
You forget about Leah Michele completely.
Right, which is great. And so yeah, I mean, it's Broadway has that caliber, but I think we see it on the road too. I think we've seen a lot of really great folks on the road because, we took a group down to Chicago because we do that. We do trips sometimes. And we took a group down to Chicago to see Book of Mormon. And you know who was in that show? Ben Platt. So those folks before they go on Broadway, like they're on the road and they're coming out. So those are the kind of the ones that we look for, and that's exciting to see. Kind of like what up and coming talent too are we going to get on the road.
And it'll be interesting because for the first time that I can recall, there are a great number of shows that closed before they even had a whole year on Broadway.
Yes.
So I'm assuming, hopefully, that they're going to try to recoup some of the money that they did not make by putting it out on the road.
Yep.
So there's got to be, I bet there's at least, I can't name them, but there's got to be at least 5, maybe more than that, of shows that that supposedly were big, successful hits on Broadway, and they closed within months.
Yep.
So I'm assuming that in the next year, the next season, there'll probably even hopefully more that'll be coming out there.
I know there was one that we all saw in May that kind of quietly opened. It's called The Heart of Rock and Roll.
Oh, right.
The Huey Lewis.
Right.
And the news, and we loved it. Everybody who went to see it, because I was there for a conference, so I'm there for a week. Tim was there for 10 days. He saw like 16 shows in that stretch. Wow. I saw, I don't know how many, 7 or 8 or whatever, but I traded out my ticket for one of the other shows to see this one because we're like, we hope it goes out. Tim was like, I loved it. And the fun part about that one, that's one that I go and I watch, and not so much for the talent, but I'm also watching like, how would this play in Madison? I'm also looking at the set, like, how's this set going to tour, right? Because that's one of the big differences when they come on the road. And that one is going to be fantastic if they put it out. I'm hoping. There's rumors. But it was set in Milwaukee.
Wow.
And so the amount of like Wisconsin and Milwaukee jokes that were dropped in were perfect. So, and it's just fun. And it's just this cute little show that's got a great story. And the music is woven in really well. So I think it would be really great. And I'm hoping it goes out. So yeah, there's those shows that open and close quickly, and sometimes they go on the road, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just go away.
Exactly.
And
sorry, back in the day, I don't know if it was Broadway Across America, but sometimes if the touring company was close to Madison wouldn't have a chance to get it. If it went to Appleton or went to Chicago or even Milwaukee, they would say, "Oh, it's too close. We're not going to allow that one to be done." But do they still adhere?
They
to
don't
that?
do that. No,
That's
there's a lot of
smart.
times where, in fact, we've got patrons because we're usually out of the 3, but of Marcus Center, the Fox Cities PAC in Appleton, and us, which are all 3 BAA markets, we're usually the last out of the 3 to announce. So we have folks that are like, well, okay, this, and this are going to be in Appleton, and this, and this are going to be in Marcus. So we might have one of the 2 of those. We have some people that really get into like guessing what our seasons are going to be, kind of, and using some of that routing too. But we've got a lot of premieres this year, which is going to be really fun.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah.
And finally, I mean, because we were there when it was the Civic Center, you couldn't book the big shows because there was no place to put anything.
Right.
I mean, the difference between having that beautiful Overture Hall and having the old weenie theater.
Oh, I know.
It's like, you can't bring those huge bus and truck tours in anymore.
Gosh, no. No, it's hard work when we bring in a show that's bigger. Like Kite Runner just was in Capitol theater, and it was a tricky in for them just because of the way that theater is set up, and it's not set up for this type of show. But it was beautiful in that space once they got it in. But
sure,
But yeah, it's rough. But it's we've got a beautiful theater to bring everything into, and every cast and crew really that have come through really appreciate coming into our space.
When I was interviewing the people that were coming in, in the old show, the first thing they would say was like, "Oh, we love coming into Madison because it's just such a great facility, and they're treated. It's not like you're going to some of the Broadway theaters,
right?
And they're the backstage, and the guys like,
and they're tiny. Yeah, they're in like a little tiny little closet.
Yeah, like, this is glamorous. We like this a
well, and
lot.
we've got some of the best technicians. Our IA team is just spectacular. So. That can't be said enough, I don't think. I love working with them.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about the upcoming season. We're finishing Moulin Rouge, which is coming up next week.
Next week, yeah.
Which I guess, now was that because it played for so long on a long tour in Chicago that it wasn't available anyplace else? Was that part of the criteria for that?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I think it just was a matter of just when we could get it routed and when we get it in. The piece that I didn't mention in the scheduling too is also like we have to have the avails, right? We have to share Overture Hall with Madison Opera and with the symphony, and so we have to kind of all shuffle and make sure that we've got enough time to be able to get all of those shows in. So that might, I think, since they needed 2 weeks, I think that's the biggest thing, is that's easier to do in the summer. And we already had Lion King, some of those megas book out a ways. So
cool. So now, so that's the end of this
current season.
Right.
Yep.
And then you're going to kick off next season
with Aunt Juliet in November.
Love that.
I know, it's fun. It is a very fun show. I think it'll be perfect for November, no matter how November goes for everybody, because it's just this fun, lighthearted show. There are a lot of really great inside jokes if you know the music. It's the music of Max Martin, so it's his songbook. So it's anywhere, artists from Bon Jovi to Pink to Britney Spears to NSYNC, all of those. You're gonna, they're all songs that you know, and there's a whole bunch of inside little jokes. And again, like I mentioned with Huey Lewis, the music really does a good job of continuing to tell the story, right? Those jukebox musicals, sometimes it's hard to do that.
That's very true.
But this one does that.
Which, for people that don't know, what's the actual thread of that, of how those all songs are strung together? So
for that, they use the premise of what happens if Juliet didn't kill herself at the end of Romeo and Juliet. So it begins with, Shakespeare is actually on stage. His wife is in the show as well. So their two main characters are there. And Shakespeare is telling everybody, all of his fans and all of his people, like, about his new play. And she says, but what if she doesn't? What if she doesn't kill herself? And she kind of takes over, and they duel with kind of trying to finish writing the story throughout the whole show. So it's fun. It's kind of a story within a story, and we get a little bit of Shakespeare, and it's a really fun show. We took our one of our groups two Aprils ago, went and saw it on Broadway, and they had a great time with it. So we know that it'll probably be pretty well received.
Excellent. So. And that's November, right?
That is November. Yep. It's the week of Thanksgiving.
Perfect. And then what's up next?
Up next, we have Funny Girl. I'm excited to see that one. I did not get to see that one when it was running.
Oh, no.
It's one of two on this upcoming season that I didn't get to see. So I'm really excited to see it because I've never seen that show. And the classic, who doesn't know the music from that show, right? It's, even if you don't think you do, you actually do know the show. You do know the songs from that show. Thank you, Glee, if nothing else.
Right. No, true. That's very true.
That's it, right?
A whole new generation of kids that knew nothing about it.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, because it hadn't been revived for 60 years, something like that. So it's a revival of it. And I think it'll be a great. We open, I think, on
New Year's Eve.
We open on New Year's Eve. So we have two holiday shows this year.
Have you ever done that before?
We have never
opened on New Year's Eve?
We have never done that.
Because usually you have the big gala night. Isn't that the big the Frosty Ball?
We haven't done Frosty Ball in a couple years.
That's what I said. But in lieu of.
In lieu of. No. So. It was a routing thing. It was kind of like this is when it would work.
Right.
And we're talking about, do we do a New Year's Eve party then in the lobby after the show? I don't know. We're talking about it to see kind of what we want to do. But it is an earlier curtain. So, come downtown, come see the show, and then go out for your New Year's Eve plans. It'll be fun.
Excellent. Love it.
It'll be great. So that I'm excited for that one. My favorite, though, that I'm really super excited for, is in February we have Shucked.
I cannot wait. I cannot wait.
I think that's
Shucked.
going to be like the sleeper favorite of the season. I think because people are like, Shucked. What? Like, I see corn. I see a lot of corn, in the advertisement. And sure, it's about a town that's surrounded by corn, and they make. I mean, like, they use corn for everything. You know, they make a comment about it, right? Like, they make corn even for their alcohol, right? So you'll see some probably pretty cool themed drinks around that one, which will be very fun. They went all out with the corn theme on Broadway, and I'm sure that we will carry that over. But it's not just like when they were writing it, their assignment was to turn Hee Haw into a musical. And they came out and they're like, well, it's racist, it's homophobic, it's misogynistic. It makes a great musical. But they took that as their inspiration, right? So there's a couple characters in there that are just a joy. Like the character of Peanut is hilarious. You know, he's throughout the show, they're like, well, what do you think, Peanut? And he'll just come up with something completely non sequitur. And you have to watch because they will pause, right? So on Broadway, what I loved about it was like they would say the joke and then they'd look at you in the audience. Like they'd break that fourth wall and be like, we're going to wait a minute. Good, you got it. Okay, and now we can move on, right? But it's all done in this great humor, and there's this great back and forth between the audience and the performers. But the best part about it is that it's a show with a lot of heart. And you don't think about that going in there, but there's some really sweet songs in it. And it's about best friends. It's about loving the town and the community that you grew up in. And it isn't just a show about hillbillies. Like, it's not at all that, in fact. It's about a really great community that is trying to figure out how to work through, the struggle of their corn dying, and that's their way of life, right? So
exactly,
lots of humor in it, but also lots of heart.
And is that one that you did get to see on Broadway?
I did get to see that.
So you got to see it with shoot, her name just went.
Yep, I'm not going to get her name either.
Out of my head.
Nope, I'm not going to get it either. But I can see her face. She played Maisie.
Yeah, totally.
Yep. Totally not going to get that name.
Yeah, I as I was thinking about it, I said I'm going to ask you if you saw it with. And now it's gone.
Yep.
Phone it in if you know.
We need help. We need the phone a friend from the audience. I need to Google.
And, she won the Tony Award for that. I mean, she was unbelievable. Cool. Yeah. So after we finish with the corn, we're going to go to the murder mystery and go to Clue. And now Clue, this is not a musical.
It is not a musical.
And is this the first time that you've done the Broadway series with a non-musical show?
We've done it before. Because I think that I Love Lucy was on series, but I can't remember. That one might not have been on series, and that was a Capitol. We tried to do Play That Goes Wrong in 2020, but that didn't end up happening. So this is kind of
the dark years. Literally the dark years.
Yes, it is. Yes. We were just talking about that. We'll come back to that, I'm sure. But yeah, so it's a rarity, and it takes a good play for us to want to put it on season.
Sure.
Just because it's our Broadway musical series, right? Like, that's really kind of what we're going for. But Clue is going to be fun. A couple of my colleagues got to go see it when it was over in Milwaukee this past season, and they just absolutely loved it. They said it's a great fun night. The performers are fantastic. So especially for those people who were excited about Play That Goes Wrong, there's similar humor in there. The set's not going to fall down around them like it does for Play That Goes Wrong, hopefully. But there's a lot of good humor in it. So I think it'll be a lot of fun to have a play on season again.
I think it's great. I think it's a nice break to have a really fun, comedy play in the middle of that.
Yeah.
Great. And that's
you know what I totally forgot?
What did you forget?
March. We have A Beautiful Noise. I forgot Neil Diamond. How can you forget Neil Diamond?
Forget about Neil Diamond?
That's the other one I have not seen, actually. I didn't get to see it on Broadway, and I think
because you were so excited about Shucked.
I know. That one did overshadow everything that year.
Again, with Neil Diamond, it's the songbook.
It's his life. Yeah, it's his songbook. It's his life, and lots of great moments with Neil being Neil on doing his concerts, and we get to just hear all of those songs. all those songs. So
that
yeah.
everybody will going to be
That
singing along
everybody
with.
is
You
going
know
to be
they're going
singing
to be
along
singing
to.
along with
Yes, yes. Prepare for the sound to get bumped during like Sweet Caroline, and just know it's going to be loud. Yeah, that's always my favorite.
Cool. So, okay, so we knocked out, we went back to
Beautiful
March,
Noise.
now
Yep.
then we flipped over.
Flipped to
Now
May.
the next one after Clue,
MJ.
Now, there's another one. You better have the most unbelievably talented person in that role.
They go
because
through an intense boot camp.
They have
they
to
go through
because-
an intense boot camp to be able to do the moves and
Yep.
the voice and, I mean, really the moves. I mean, that's...
Sure.
They move like Michael Jackson up there. I got to see it in Chicago, not on Broadway, but in Chicago, and I love it. It's not like the story of his life, which I really appreciated because for some people it's like they've got so much. I don't know how you fit it in 2.5 hours. And you can't.
You can't.
So what they did with this, it was brilliant. They took this one little chunk when he was preparing for the Dangerous tour, which of course was right after his really big tour, right? So he's trying to figure out, he's grappling with like, how do I match this in, in quality, in showmanship and everything, and still keep his sanity, right?
Right.
But the nice in for them in the storytelling was he actually did invite MTV in to do a documentary about this process, right? So that's kind of a little bit of the in, is how the story keeps kind of going through, is you kind of see him doing these interviews with the folks that are doing that with MTV. So there's a little bit of that in there. But there's a whole lot of really good dancing. I mean, those dancers were just incredible. I don't know how they do it, but it was just phenomenal. Because it was it was everything you'd expect it to be, right?
Yeah.
They're doing the moves, they're doing
Right.
everything. You get to see some of the band on the stage playing during some of those sequences too. And they really take the time in that to talk about what made Michael Jackson the artist that he was. There's this beautiful number in there, and I won't spoil too much of it, but he talks about who his inspirations were as far as dancing. And, Fred Astaire in there, and I can't remember the duo that was like the soft shoe duo that were phenomenal. And then, of course, Fosse. And so you get to see how all of those elements get worked into the dance that his signature movement.
And was that song written specifically for this show, or was it one of his?
That was something that was written specifically for the show. Yep. I mean, it has one of his songs that kind of, they talk about it and then they move into one of his pieces.
Okay.
And so you see where that dance movement comes into the pieces. And it's just brilliantly done. The lighting is gorgeous and the scenic is fantastic as well.
doubt.
So it's a great show, and I'm excited that we've got it on season.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And that's another one that I wouldn't think would have gotten on tour so soon, because I mean, that was a mega hit on Broadway.
Yeah, it's still running.
Yeah.
Still running, still going strong, which is great because it's such a shorter term now for most shows.
Yeah,
Tim and I were
sadly.
just talking about that. Yeah, it's like if they make it a year, they're doing pretty well. If they make it 2, they're kind of into a smaller percentage now, which is sad but true. So
And there just seems like there's so many more shows now.
yeah.
They just like every time you turn around, another one is opening, and then you think, and them redoing a lot of the theaters and making the theaters, upgrading the theaters and renaming the theaters.
Renaming them,
crazy. Because I have no idea which one is which
I know.
one.
It's like, wait, which one? Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I don't know how many. It was like something like 13 shows opened in like 5 days or something.
Yeah, it was.
In April. So I guess the number of shows that opened last season was very similar to the previous seasons, but it was all that they all opened up in that mid to late April timeframe. Like so many of them opened that it was like, here's another opening, and here's another opening, and here's another show. Poof, here's another show. Right? Like the genie was doing something. So yeah,
It was just to keep Seth Rudetsky busy. Right. So he'd have something to talk about every day without repeating himself.
That's right. That's funny. That's very funny. Yeah, but it was a very busy spring, which we like to see that though, because we like to see Broadway do well.
Yeah, of course.
Because what does well on Broadway then goes out on the road for sure.
Of course.
So yeah.
So after Michael Jackson says goodbye to us,
then we finally get our Wicked in, right? I know everybody's like, why didn't you book it sooner? And what I want to tell you is, we had the 2020 date booked in 2016. Tim, I remember it distinctly. Tim comes through and he's like, I just booked something for 2020. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. I was like, what booked out? And I was like, oh, Wicked. Because these megas, the Lion Kings, the Wickeds, the Book of Mormons, the Book of Mormons not as much anymore, but they book that far out.
Sure.
And so we had it on the books for 4 years. And so instead of going back and like having them wipe what they had already booked after, post-pandemic when they were finally able to get on the road, they just kind of kept what they had. And then it was, let's get you back in the cycle, right? So it took a while for us to get it back in the cycle. But finally, it is the last pandemic show to be rescheduled. Tim said that about My Fair Lady, and I was like, it's not though. It's not. It's not. And I was like, but you can't tell them.
No one is to know that.
Before we were announcing. So you're like, we can't tell you. It's not actually, but yep. So now we will officially have
I love it.
The
and we were amazingly lucky because we got to see it opening night.
Yeah.
And there was like such an incredibly good cast. Oh my gosh, that cast was so good. And I remember I turned to my husband Jim and I said, we have to come back and see this again because we were so blown away by that. And all of a sudden it was like,
nope,
not gonna happen.
Nope, but that sat.
Didn't it sit there for a long time?
Until September of that year. Yeah, it was the longest it has ever sat in any place.
That's just unbelievable.
Yeah. It's crazy. Wow. And Tim didn't go fly in the bubble that whole time. I kept telling him, I'm like, we got to figure it out. We got to make it happen. So this time around, maybe the next time around, I might be like, okay, folks at Wicked, we need to figure out how to make it happen.
Yes, indeed.
Because, yep, Tim in the bubble. We're going to make it happen. Tim's going to be Glinda for a moment. And we're going to see if we can make it happen.
Well, that's part of the casting requirements is that the actress has to fit into the bubble, right?
Oh, I have no idea. I can imagine. I remember because that bubble doesn't change size. Yeah,
I think that
right?
Kristen Sheldon talked about that everybody subsequent to her because they built it obviously to
at least
to her size.
Yep.
Is that you can't be bigger than that because you won't fit into the bubble.
Right. Oh my God, that's funny. No, and she's tiny.
She is tiny.
Yeah.
She is tiny.
Fantastic human being and tiny.
I love it. I love it. So, but in addition to that, there's like a myriad of other things that are going on. I mean, there's got to be something booked into either the Overture Hall or into the Capitol Theater almost every single
it's a busy season.
night. It's just amazing how many
season.
The breadth of selection that we have of shows that are going on.
Yeah. Yep. I'm excited for the Twyla Tharp to come in, the
That's
dance company.
cool.
So
yep.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those where I love her work. I love her as a choreographer. I loved seeing it in Moving Out when that came through a lifetime ago, feels like. And I'm excited for that one for sure. We've got a lot of favorites. Right, the Straight No Shade shows. We've got the Nat Geo live series coming back. So a lot of favorites that Tim tried to book this season for our Presents series.
And you're also doing the Fringe Festival. Did you ever do the Fringe Festival before?
We have not done it. Yeah, this is kind of a first. So. Yeah, so it's kind of. I mean, it's not packed like a Fringe. Like over in Edinburgh, right? It's not quite the same schedule.
Right.
But we really wanted to kind of recreate that feel, or Tim did, I guess. It's his baby, really, because he goes over every year to the Fringe Festival now and sees like 8 million shows. It's like 38 shows in like 14 days or something like that. It's just insane how many shows he gets to see. Yeah, it's great, and it's great inspiration for him, and that's really kind of what drew him to wanting to book kind of a weekend where we have a lot of those same artists.
That's very cool. And my adorable girls, the Kinsey Six, are going to be here. And they were here a while ago. They were
It's been a while.
It was a long time ago.
Yep.
I worked with them when I lived in LA, and I just adored them.
Yeah.
I adored them so much.
They're so much fun.
And they're funny. They sound. Their harmonies are so tight.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing them back in Madison again. That's going to be really fun.
It'll be a lot of fun to see them too. So
very, very cool. Yeah. So what are you doing during your downtime, I know you have, what do you do in the 38 seconds a day?
My 38 seconds a day that I don't, yeah. Well, I mean, I have 3 children, so
that'll keep you busy.
I try to, yeah, 13, 9, and 5.
Wow.
And the 13-year-old is in baseball, so I'm an assistant coach, which is a lot of fun, and hence the baseball coach's tan. So yeah, I mean, we do a lot of fun stuff, and my youngest, I think, is going to be my stage kid. I was playing the SpongeBob musical as we were going up to my father-in-law's this weekend, and he's now singing the songs to it.
Oh,
which
yeah,
is
he's
the
hooked.
greatest. I was like,
he's
yes!
hooked. Yeah,
that's awesome. So, anybody need a child actor at 5 years old, you just call me. Call me. He'll probably do it. He's sassy. He's very sassy, but, he'll do it. He follows directions and memorizes stuff, and he loves my videos that I, when I'm stage managing the Jerry Awards, I do videos of the rehearsals so that I can go in and practice calling the show. Because I get to see it once on stage during the rehearsal, like during the dress rehearsal. We never do the show in order. I see it once, and then it's all out of order, and then we come back and we just do the show. So I get very little time to actually put cues in my book. And so I will oftentimes just record the rehearsal so that I can make sure the blocking notes are right and remember kind of where they're going, so that I can tell the spot ops who have not been in rehearsal for the majority of the rehearsals what performer they're looking for, right? So I record them. And he likes to go back and find those videos, and he sings to them with like all the inflection and all of the decoration on the voices, and it's
oh my God, you're so going to have a theater kid on your hand.
Ever. And it was totally... like he did it all. Like I didn't encourage this at all. This was all him. Like he searches for it. Like there's one that I've kept on there from last year even that he like looks back and he's got to go back a year in the photos and videos to find it. So,
that's very cool.
Yeah, so I'm serious. If you need a 5-year-old performer, like you let me know.
There you go.
We've never done it, but yeah.
Well, there's plenty of opportunities around. I mean, everybody's putting kids in.
I know,
because it sells tickets.
Right. Well, there's that.
You put the kids in a show, and Grandma and Grandpa and Aunt Tilly and Uncle Fred and
that's right.
all the relatives got to buy those seats.
That's right. But they're also fun. They're just fun on there. It's fun to have the kids on stage.
Of course, of course.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I do in my spare time, and I see more shows. I go out to see the high school shows, so because we've got just such great high school shows going on all over the state.
I
agree.
The
state.
I agree.
So
now, how many currently are in the upcoming season for the Jerry Awards?
So we won't know until we do 2 different application rounds. So we have people apply in September and then in January. But last year we had around 100 schools.
Wow.
All the way from, we had Eagle River down to Kenosha, down to Janesville, over to La Crosse, and, everywhere in between. Lots of local ones, too. We're in Waukesha County a lot, and Milwaukee. Wow. So, yeah, we're all over.
I was going through the New York, I can't think of who's it named after?
The Jimmy Awards.
Jimmy Awards. I knew it was a J. I couldn't get Jimmy out of my head. The Jimmy Awards.
Yep.
The talent, unbelievable. And those 2 that won.
I know. Oh my goodness.
There was no way he could be in high school. I was like, there's no way. There's no way. He is not in high school. Well, it's impossible.
What I loved the best about him is he comes out in his first, in the character medley as Seymour. And oh my God, if they don't pull him and put him in the off-Broadway version of that's running right now of Little Shop, I would be, He was so adorable, so cute. And then he comes out and pulls out and does Ragtime for his final and he started singing that and the whole audience. And it was loud. It was like my watch was telling me, you were in a loud environment, like all throughout the show. And I was doing this through a lot of it. And you could have heard a pin drop when he opened his mouth for those first notes. We were like, damn.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's unbelievable.
And she's
no slouch either.
No,
she's no.
We had her mother actually. Her mother was 2 seats down from me, so we got to have that extra excitement.
My God.
Like right next to us. She was like, I'm so sorry. It's my daughter up there. And it was like, you got one heck of a talented kid on your hands.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just beautiful to see her do that number too.
Yeah.
It was like, holy cow. And none of them in those finals were slouches, really. The gal that did the song from The Color Purple too, it was like, talk about singing a song that like you should have no concept of what the emotions are behind that piece at your age, right? Like, and she did a really darn good job of pulling it together and selling that number. And dang, yeah, it's amazing to go and see that show.
Do they have people in the audience that are actually scouting?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's people on the selection that are doing the choosing. Yeah. I mean, Telsey's there and Tara Rubin. I mean, they're always a part of the selection committee, really. So yeah, there's a lot of kids that not even in the finalists that get work all the time from that.
That's so great.
It's just the exposure.
So great.
Yep. I mean, it's such an intense week.
Oh, there's no doubt.
It's 10 days now, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was interesting to see it this year with the changes that they did. But the talent is just always so intense and incredible.
That's great. It's so encouraging. It's just so encouraging to see that, giving an opportunity to high school kids.
Yeah.
That, when I was in high school, none of that stuff existed at all whatsoever.
When people hear about the Jerry Awards, our high school program, that's what they said, oh my God, I wish something like that had been around when I was in high school. And we all thought the same thing. So, we're trying to make sure that it's everything that we would have wanted it to be if it was our program.
Yeah.
Right. When we were in high school. So
cool.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that the Broadway season tickets are currently still on sale.
Still on sale. Yep. Subscriptions for sure.
Cool. And what's the add-on this year? Is it Wicked? Is Wicked the add-on?
Wicked is the add-on.
Wicked is the add-on.
Wicked is the add-on. Yep. Yep. We try to make sure try to make sure that we don't have too many repeats on season, just so that people want to see new things. So yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, it's in town for 3 weeks. So. Lots of tickets. 3 weeks.
Wow, 3 weeks. What was the last? Lion King was the one. Was that the last one? Was it
Lion
for 3
King?
Weeks?
God, did it do 3 or did it do 2? I think it might have only done 2 weeks.
Oh, really? Only 2?
Oh, no, it was 3 because I did 3 settlements.
I thought it was 3 weeks. Yeah, I thought it was here for 3 weeks.
It was 3 weeks. Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Well.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
great. One of my favorite shows. One of my absolute favorite shows.
Yep.
That's great. Well, it's so exciting and so encouraging,
fun.
It's so great that we have that opportunity and facility, and that we have these companies coming to Madison. It really enriches all of our lives. And congratulations to you for never saying no to anything, which is my mantra whenever I teach or when I talk to kids. And they're like, so how did you get into this? And how did you get into that? And
just
how did you do this? Just like, I don't say no to anything unless it's something that's going to hurt me or hurt you.
Right.
And I know I can't do that. It's like, ride a motorcycle and do, 360s. I always said yes no matter what it was. Right. And if I didn't like it, then I won't do it again. But if you don't leave that opportunity to be absolutely to say, yeah, I'll try this.
Right.
And you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you never know who the person is you're saying yes to either.
Right. I mean, and you gain so much from every experience, right? Like what we didn't talk about too is like I went out on the road with a teeny tiny little show for about 4 years, and did everything from advancing the show with the technicians at the house, to doing the prop management and the stage management. I learned lots of tricks to call shows while I'm in the show because I was also in the show, right? And dance captains, and so I did all sorts of different roles with that helps me now as I'm like working with our technicians as far as like advancing shows and what these shows need as they're coming in and reading the contracts that the things that the shows are wanting and when we do the settlement. So like all of that experience. I get to pull all of it in with what I do, which is really awesome. Yeah, that is awesome. You're right. You're right. I mean, the whole thing is a learning experience. And I always, say to the ones that, no, we just want to be an actor. And it's like, well, that's great. But you should really know what else goes on to make sure that you look good because there's a lot of other people that are doing a lot of important things while you're just up, learning your lines and getting up there and acting. Yeah. So I'm really, really, really encouraged by that. Yeah, and we need other people. We need technicians. We need backstage people. We need the people that do, the unglamorous part in order to keep things, to keep the shows alive. Yep. Which is very cool. Yep. Yeah, I always tell people that, the road in arts to your path, your career is always like this because nobody I know has a direct well, this is what I wanted to do and I went and I did it. Because I'm like...
And you're going to keep on doing it every
Right?
day.
Exactly. That's right. That's right. That's right.
Cool.
So, yeah, it's great.
Thank you so much for
You're
spending
welcome.
this
Thank
time
you
with us.
for
This has been a
having
joy. I've
me.
been wanting to do this for such a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that we had this opportunity. And I'm sure our cross will be passing many, many
I am
times
sure.
in the upcoming season.
That'll be
And I
great.
really, really appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in. And we will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Jim. And thank you, Cara.
Thank you.
See you next time.